Welcome back to Tech Unboxed, the podcast where we pull apart some complex tech topics and, well, make sense of them. I'm Mark Etcher, your resident tech enthusiast, and alongside my ever-curious co-host Jenny, we're diving deep into the latest buzz from NVIDIA. It's quite a buzz.
And I'm Jenny. Today, we're addressing what feels like the elephant in the server room, and honestly, the elephant in our gaming PCs, the latest NVIDIA GPU. Specifically, what's going on with the RTX 5090? Is it, like, the gaming savior we've been waiting for, or something else entirely? Because honestly, from what I'm seeing, there's quite a bit of drama unfolding.
Drama, indeed. From insane performance leaps in AI to, some spicy thermal issues, and a market that feels a little bit like the Hunger Games for GPUs. We've got a lot to unpack. So let's kick things off with the star of the show itself, the RTX 5090 and its new Blackwell architecture.
All right, Mark. Lay it on me. Everyone's heard the hype, obviously, but what does Blackwell actually mean for us users? What's the biggest headline coming out of this new architectural jump? Beyond just, it's faster?
Oh man, this is probably the coolest part. Blackwell, the architecture behind the 5090, is a serious beast. The headline? It's a massive leap for AI workloads. I mean, my research shows that the 5090 runs Stable Diffusion 6.7 times faster than the 4090. That's like rendering an image in 3.2 seconds versus 21.4 seconds. That's not just an upgrade, Jenny. That's almost sorcery.
Sorcery. I like that. But hold up, 6.7 times faster for Stable Diffusion? That's incredible if you're an artist or a content creator. Does that, translate to gaming in any way? Because our listeners, myself included, are probably wondering if their favorite games will suddenly load in an instant or, just look dramatically different.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And here's the thing. Those AI gains do times translate to gaming, but mostly through DLSS 4. Without DLSS 4, the raw gaming performance improvement is, well, it's around 15% over the 4090. Still good, but not the 6.7x we just talked about. DLSS 4 is doing some heavy lifting with something called multi-frame generation, which renders extra frames using AI. It's truly impressive, especially in titles built for it. So it's not a like-for-like jump across the board.
So it sounds like NVIDIA is really leaning into AI as the future, even for gaming. It's almost like they're saying, hey gamers, your next GPU comes with an AI copilot whether you asked for one or not. Quote, and that 32 gigabytes of GDDR7 VRAM? That seems pretty significant, doesn't it? Especially for those AI models you mentioned.
It is. That 32 gigabytes of VRAM is absolutely crucial. It lets AI developers run much larger models, like 13 billion parameter LLMs, entirely on the GPU. On a 4090, you'd cap out at around 7 billion parameter models before you hit memory limits. So to put it simply, this card kind of turns your desktop into a personal AI data center. It's a huge leap for local machine learning. For gamers, it certainly future-proofs you for higher resolutions and even more complex graphical fidelity as games evolve.
Okay, so the 5090 is a beast for AI and decent for gaming, especially with DLSS 4 enabled. But let's pivot a little from the tech specs to the real-world chaos we're seeing. Because, Mark, it seems like, despite all this power, getting your hands on one and then keeping it cool afterwards is a whole other saga. Let's talk about the market distortions.
Oh, Jenny, this is where it gets messy. Remember the GPU drought a few years back? It feels like we're reliving it, but with a twist. My research shows about 65% of the initial 5090 production was allocated directly to data centers. That's a massive chunk. It means consumer channels are just starving for cards, which drives up prices for what little is available.
65% to data centers? That's a lot. So, ordinary people trying to buy one for their gaming rig or creative work are essentially fighting over scraps. No wonder the prices are, like, through the roof. I'm seeing averages of $2, $250, nearly 20% above MSRP in some places. And you mentioned something about Brazil, like $3, $200 even?
Yeah, that's not just regular inflation. That's, dare I say, almost daylight robbery when cloud giants like Azure are buying consumer 5090s as budget AI accelerators because their B200 server chips are backordered. Well, gamers lose. It's a classic David versus Goliath story, except Goliath is winning, and he owns all the server farms. Meanwhile, the used market for 4090s? It's just collapsing. People are panic selling, and prices for a used 4090 have already dropped 25%. It's wild to watch.
It's like ripples in a pond, right? This massive demand from big tech companies just splashes right out into the consumer market, causing all kinds of havoc. And speaking of havoc, let's talk about the elephant in the literal room, the thermals. Mark, 575 watts? My kettle doesn't draw that much power, and it boils water.
Jenny, get ready, because this is where the pyromania comes in. A GPU that needs 575 watts of power isn't just a component, it's a small space heater. You need a 1000 watt power supply just to breathe comfortably. And even then you're pushing it. And my favorite part from my research, 12% of early units reported melted 16-pin power connectors. A GPU that might melt its own connectors? That's not a feature. That's a fire hazard in a box.
Melted connectors? That frankly sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. So, what's NVIDIA's grand solution to this thermal inferno? Are they telling everyone to just, dunk their PC in a bucket of liquid nitrogen, or?
Close. They have a green mode firmware update that caps power at 480 watts. But here's the kicker. It sacrifices 15% of your performance to do that. So, they're essentially saying, hey, your card might not melt, but it'll be slower. Quote. Or, you can spend an extra $129 on a third-party cooler just to stop your rig from becoming a campfire. It forces you to make a choice between speed and safety, which, honestly, isn't much of a choice at all when you've paid so much.
That's quite the user experience. You pay top dollar for what is supposed to be the fastest GPU on the market, and then you have to choose between performance and not having your house potentially burn down. This really highlights the growing divide between what AI developers need and what typical gamers are looking for. So, Mark, who is this card truly for, in your opinion?
That's the core of it, Jenny. AI developers are calling this card revolutionary. Quote, it runs 13 billion parameter models locally, which is a massive leap from the 4090's 7 billion. For them, it's a goldmine. For many gamers, however, it's closer to an expensive space heating device, as you so aptly put it. The performance gains are real, but they're largely dependent on DLSS 4. Without it, you're looking at, a 35% average FPS bump in games. It feels almost schizophrenic in its purpose.
Schizophrenic is a pretty good word for it. It's god tier for stable diffusion, but potentially lukewarm for something like Cyberpunk in comparison. It truly feels like NVIDIA is chasing those bigger AI profit margins, potentially leaving their traditional gaming audience in a bit of a lurch. And then there's the ethical consideration of e-waste from 4090s, becoming rapidly obsolete due to this GPU.
Exactly. And if you're a content creator, you'll see massive gains in something like DaVinci Resolve, a 210% speed boost, because it really leverages those AI tensor cores. But if you're doing Blender rendering, you might only see, a 22% improvement. It's a huge disparity in how different users will benefit. And the e-waste concern? It's significant. My research indicates as many as 22 million 4090s could become e-waste by 2027, simply because AI models are increasingly demanding that 32 gigabytes plus VRAM.
That's a sobering thought, isn't it? So for the everyday user, should they even consider the 5090 at this point, or are we better off just waiting for whatever comes next, hoping it's a bit more consumer-friendly and less fiery?
For AI developers and professionals, the 5090 is probably an immediate buy, no question there. For gamers, though, unless you absolutely need the bleeding edge, or you're already deeply invested in DLSS 4 titles, I'd honestly say wait. Prices need time to stabilize, and those thermal issues definitely need to be ironed out. You might even find a great deal on a used 4090 as the market continues to shift dramatically. The gaming and AI worlds are converging, but it's certainly a bumpy road ahead.
A very bumpy road indeed. So, the RTX 5090, A monumental leap for AI, but a mixed bag, and a rather hot potato for gamers right now. Mark, as always, this was quite the deep dive. Thanks for making sense of this chaos for us.
Anytime, Jenny. It's always a wild ride with these new cards. Thanks for joining us on Tech Unboxed. We'll catch you next time as we continue to unbox the world of technology.
And remember to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. See you then?